Hi, readers. Welcome back. This is the last day of our theme that we've been working on all week, which is this theme of perseverance. And that is such an important character trait to develop: perseverance, overcoming obstacles, getting up every time you get pushed down. So, our last book of the week is one of my favorites. And you can tell, first of all, I've had this book a long time, long enough for when I used to go by Miss Spencer, back when I taught first grade up in East Harlem in New York City. Also, this book is very, very well loved. I don't know if you can see, but there is tape in between a lot of these pages. And in fact, a lot of the pages I need to tape because they are about to fall out. You see that? Which just proves that this is a really good book. So this is by Vera B. Williams, and it's called A Chair for My Mother. And to me, this book is sort of the epitome of perseverance. It's about a family who goes through a devastating loss and the ways in which their community comes together to help them, and also the ways in which they continue to hold out hope and persevere even when things are difficult. So, A Chair for My Mother. My mother worked as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job to do. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me. And every time I put half of my money into the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all of the coins into the jar. Can you see that big jar? Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips. Some days she has only a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. I'm going to do this so you guys can see the picture while I read. Usually Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts the savings and they go into the jar. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take out all of the money and go and buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We are going to get the best chair in the whole wide world. That is because our old chairs, they burned up. There was a big fire in our house. All our chairs burned. So did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. So there was a fire in their apartment, and everything that they owned burned up. So they had to start all over. Here's a picture of her walking with her mother. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had sandals, she had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying I liked the yellow ones. Then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. That must have been very scary. But everything else in our whole house was spoiled. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my sister's Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. So that's them looking into their old house that has burned. That must have been so devastating. Can you imagine such a big loss? Some of you don't even have to imagine it. Some of you may have experienced it. And when you experience a tremendous loss like that, it's really hard to recover. And it's okay to spend some time just wallowing in your grief. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel sad when you lose something or when something's not going your way. But eventually, like Swimmy from yesterday's book, we have to pick ourselves up. We have to brush ourselves off. We have to find the beauty in the world. We have to continue to move on. Let's see how they did it. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream. And they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful way that this community is all coming together to support this family in their time of need. I love that. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug. My mother's other sister, Sally, had made us red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans, silverware and dishes. My cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. So kind and so generous. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You all are the kindest people," she said, "and we thank you very, very much. It's lucky we're young and can start all over." That was last year. But we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. "There's no good place for me to take a load off my feet," she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. Look at that jar, you guys. Do you notice that it's beginning to fill up? So that is how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started to go into that jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so I could put it in. After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. "Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full," she said. My brother brought home little paper wrappers for the nickels and the dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills. Then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. And there they are at the bank. We shopped 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and smaller ones, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and harder ones. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks and the 3 little bears. And there they are, trying out all the chairs. There's the grandma. Finally, we found the chair we had all been dreaming of. And the money in the jar was just enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. They came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it a while they carried it up to the door. And it looks just like the chair she was describing. Red velvet and roses all over. How amazing that they found that exact chair that they wanted. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit in it with her, and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. They are. And here's the picture that Aunt Ida took of all of them in the chair together. So, since our theme is perseverance this week, I want you to think about the ways in which that family persevered through such a terrible, tricky time in their lives, right? They lost everything in their home when they had a fire, and they had to start over. And luckily, they had their beautiful community who came together to support them. And I know yesterday I asked you guys to think about a way that you could come together with your community or your friends and do something great for the world. Maybe it's making masks. Right now, I know that there are masks needed in lots of places in the world, let alone in our own county. Maybe it's reading a book to a younger sibling. Maybe it's writing letters to healthcare workers, right? There's lots of things that you can do, lots of ways that you can come together as a community right now and be a great community member. And remember, everyone, that even though times are really tricky, we're going to get through it. We're going to persevere, and we're going to make it through, and we're going to come out the other end stronger with the help of our community and with our own perseverance. All right, my friends, I'll see you next week. I hope that you'll come by this weekend to listen to my daughter read some books too. Until then, be kind to yourselves. Bye.